July ETF inflows notching the second strongest month ever. This is according to Verify. Inflows hitting $126 billion. With the sort of volatility we've seen this week, are ETFs your next safer investments? That's the big question to discuss. We've got Todd Rosenbluth, who is the Verify Head of Research as part of the ETF report brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Todd, great to see you here. All right, so when you see ETF inflows like this, what does that typically signal?
Well, that's a positive sign of ETF adoption. ETFs are a great vehicle to get exposure to the equity or fixed income or commodities market. And in July, there was certainly money going into the risk-on investments. We saw high-yield corporate bonds. We saw broad S&P 500-based ETFs gain traction. And we've seen in the beginning days of August, some of that trading volume has continued, but it's moved into some of the lower risk equity exposures, more value-oriented approaches as folks pivot. But this is a great sign for ETF adoption.
Does this ETF adoption signal to you an investor appetite for just de-risking?
So we're seeing that in a couple of ways. One, ETFs offer a more diversified way of getting exposure to the equity markets or the fixed income market. So if you wanted to focus on higher quality companies, we saw strong demand actually in the last couple of days for an ETF VFlow, the Victory Shares Free Cash Flow ETF. These are high quality but yet growing companies, and you get a well-diversified portfolio of them. We saw unusual buying activity in that ETF, in the VFlow ETF that we're showing here on the screen. But for folks that want to de-risk, we've also seen strong interest in those lower volatility or downside protection-oriented ETFs. So Calamos has a suite of products that we've talked about in the last couple of months that they've rolled out. And we've also seen Invesco's SPLV. That's the Invesco S&P 500 Low Volatility ETF. These are the least risky stocks in the S&P 500, more defensive approach to getting exposure to those large cap stocks. It's held up better in the last couple of days, in fact, the last week or so, in light of the market volatility. So good way of de-risking your equity portfolio.